Hi guys, today I'm going to be introducing Latin. If you're looking for a video that teaches you exactly how to get started learning the language, then this isn't the one for you. My goal today is to just show you how it works, how it's different from English, how I as a classicist go about reading and translating, and why it's a handy thing to know about, especially if you're studying things like history, literature, or other subjects, where you might run into things that were written way back in ancient Rome. I recently wrote a paper for my English class where I was analyzing a speech by the famous Marcus Tullius Cicero. While I was searching for a decent picture of my subject, I ran into a bunch of funny memes and jokes that I spent a decent amount of time scrolling through instead of working on my paper. I realized that a lot of them were hilarious to me, but wouldn't even make sense to someone who had never studied the language. Later on, as I started to dive into the actual analysis, I noticed that some of the nuances and stylistic tricks that Cicero employed to make his speeches so powerful were just getting completely lost in translation. No matter how hard I tried, I realized that it's almost impossible to explain those things in a paper when the Latin language is structured so differently than the one we're used to. Learning Latin is hard. Sometimes there are subjects that seem to get harder as you progress, but for me, in Latin, starting out was the hardest. Here's a very simple Latin sentence. As a native English speaker, the first thing I noticed was how strange the word order is. The second thing was the apparent lack of information. For instance, the English sentence has a personal pronoun, she. The one in Latin does not. The revelation that half of the extra stuff we add into sentences is packed just into the ending of the words was mind-boggling. It took a couple years, but eventually my brain just started seeing this. So let me show you how I got there. I think we all know Julius Caesar, and I've been looking for a reason to use this meme for a really long time. To demonstrate, I've taken an excerpt from Caesar's De Bello Gallicio, which was basically a play-by-play report on his military exploits during the Roman invasion of Gaul. Or one of them, anyways. The Romans seemed to be quite fond of marching into Gaul. So here we go. The first rule of Latin translation: always start with the verb. The verb will always be at the end of a segment or sentence. So if we look at this one, we can still apply some rules of English grammar. We have smaller phrases that are attached by a comma, conjunction, etc. It's still one big sentence, but we can deal with each part separately. If the first thing I'm going to do is find the verb, then you can see where each of these separations are. So here's what I mean when I tell you that the endings supply you with a lot of the information. There are separate endings that indicate each of these things. I'm not going to list them, but here's an explanation of what they do. I'll start with verb endings. First thing that we look at with a verb is the verb's number. Is the subject of the verb going to be singular or plural? The second thing is the person, first person, second person, or third person. So that tells you if we're talking about I am doing something or he, she, or it is doing something. It also tells you the case, the present tense, future tense, etc. There are a lot more, but this will tell you when the verb is being done. There's also mood, which can be indicative, stating a fact, imperative, issuing a command, or subjunctive, stating something that is uncertain. This specifies what the phrase that we're using the verb in, what it's meant to do. Now for what noun endings can give us. Number, once again, it tells us if something is singular or plural. And now we have the case system. A noun that is in the nominative case will be the subject of the sentence. Genitive case indicates possession, my hat or your dog. The hat or the dog would be genitive. Dative can be translated as to or for whom. If I said, I gave the book to you, the book would be dative. The accusative case, it's most often translated as the noun receiving the action of a verb. The ablative case is complicated, but it can usually be translated with by, with, from, in, at, or on. And finally, the vocative case, which is used in direct address. A very famous example is et tu, Brute. So if we look at Brutus, which is Brutus's name, Brutus is in the vocative because Caesar is addressing Brutus. So, we split up that long sentence written by Caesar. Here's the first part. The first thing to do is look at the verb, which is in red. The ending tells us that the subject will be third person singular. The easiest thing to do next is look at nam, which is in pink at the beginning of the sentence. It's just a conjunction that means on one hand or for. It's easily translated because it's undeclinable and will be the same no matter where you use it. The next thing I see right off the bat is the noun and adjective pair of nostris militibus. Nouns are orange and adjectives are blue. I know they're a pair because their case, number, and gender match up. That's the endings they give me. They could either be ablative or dative, I don't know which yet. But I can say that they aren't the subject of the verb. So our soldiers are not the thing that's being diminished here. That leaves the last noun, spem, which is accusative and singular, which is good. So now I know that it's the hope. The hope is the thing that is being diminished. And here's just kind of an easier translation, or how it would be written in common English. For the hope was diminishing for our soldiers, instead of this kind of clunky thing we have here. Let's do one more. Here's the next part of the sentence. Again, the first thing I look at is the verb. Just like earlier, it's third person singular. And let's go ahead and throw our conjunction in there too. The noun pugnon jumps off the screen at me because it's both accusative and singular, so it can agree with the verb. There's an adjective in there too, alacriores, that could also be accusative, as well as nominative or vocative. But in this case, it cannot be modifying pugnon because it is plural, and pugnon is singular. It does agree with hostes, which can either be nominative or vocative. We can rule out accusative for alacriores, so we're left with nominative and vocative. Vocative is easy to get rid of because we aren't directly addressing the eager enemies, so they have to be nominative. So now you might understand the joke here, since you know that verbs are always at the end of the sentence, and that Cicero was known to go off on tangents sometimes. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them if I have time. All of my sources will be listed in the description, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.